What is going on, everybody? And welcome. Man, I am still jumping, still so excited. Man, I cannot believe that happened. But welcome back to another week of NFL picks. Obviously, last week, an amazing Monday night game with my Falcons. Man, that was special. But still, I want to live forever, but exciting thing is we get to move on. It is now week 3. We're now 2 full weeks into the NFL season. It is now week 3. And another exciting week of games. Need more time. Last week I went 6-10, and I gotta say it was not a good week for me. Just was not. Now, obviously, that last game I predicted Philly to win. I gladly got that wrong, man. It's so unbelievable. It is. But overall record 14-18, lock of the week 1-1, and upset of the week. I am so far 0-2 with my upset of the weeks. Thursday night football, AFC East matchup between two 1-1 teams, the 1-1 Patriots, heading to New York to face the 1-1 Jets. This is the Jets home opener. Got a few more home openers here in week 3. AFC East matchup, two teams that for the Patriots, it has been a solid start to the Jerome Mayo era. Obviously, a loss was it was a game that you look at and you say New England still there is stuff to work with. The when this is a game you could see going either way. Obviously, the Patriots have had success against the Jets, in recent years. But I do feel like the Jets are going to get this game. I don't see this being a high-scoring game at all. It feels like a defensive game, but it being in New York, it is still Aaron Rodgers. I do think that the Jets are going to come out, are going to get the win, make a statement, going over 500, and get the dub on Thursday night. Heading into our Sunday action, we have the 0-2 Browns the 0-2 Giants going into Cleveland to face the Jacksonville. The Giants, they did look better, but still suffered a loss to the Commanders last week. So I got to go with the Browns here. It just feels like one of those games where they should take care of business. The Giants are not a good team. So I personally, think that, Browns come out, they take care of business. They should get the win in this one. Next game we have here, obviously involving one of, the team that, suffered the loss that Monday night game, got absolutely no sympathy for. On a personal level, what we're pulling for in this game, we have the 1-1 Eagles. You know what happened. Going up against the team who, I got to say, might be the biggest, shocker in the NFL of, their success these first 2 weeks in the New Orleans Saints. Their offense has looked absolutely amazing with Clint Kubiak as offensive coordinator. Derek Carr is looking like all of a sudden a stud quarterback. That offense is running smoothly. However, I feel like this is definitely a game you look at and you say the Saints could win, but they're going to run into a hiccup at some point. It does feel like to me, the little weeks, it is going to die down. I am going to pick the Eagles. It's not saying that the Saints can't win. I mean, if the Eagles do what they did on, to Monday night, I Saints could absolutely win. But I do think the Eagles are going to come out, get an upper hand. I do think that they could potentially pose some problems to New Orleans. That offensive line is definitely over exceeded expectations, but Philly is able to get inside pressure. And you would have to think a fire is going to be lit under Philly's ass at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give this one to Philly. Next game we have here, battle of 2-0 teams. The Houston Texans head up to Minneapolis to take on the Minnesota Vikings. Texans, obviously impressive, last season, impressive start to this season. Minnesota, impressive start to this season. They beat the reigning NFC champions last Sunday, and they're back at it at home. Opportunity to go to 3-0 on the year, which I don't think many people were expecting from Minnesota. But, the Texans, they are the better team here. I do think it could be a close game, as I, think. But at the same time, it could also be a rout. I do think the Texans' offense are going to figure it out, they've already figured it out. But, it kind of does feel like, where the 49ers maybe lacked last week, the Texans could be able to thrive better, along with the fact that, Minnesota, it's another thing. It's one of these insanity runs. It's going to end at some point. I think it ends here. So give me the Texans in this one to go to 3-0. Next game we have here, Tampa Bay, another 2-0 start. Obviously, they look like they have not missed a beat. The reigning NFC South champions currently have been for the past few years. Welcome in a Denver Broncos team. Bo Nix is starting quarterback. That still feels like in many ways they're trying to find themselves. They suffered a tough loss to Pittsburgh last week. Obviously, Pittsburgh's very much a stingy defense. And I would honestly probably have to give this game to Tampa. Even though I honestly will say this is a game you could get that weird feeling about where maybe Denver goes down there, figures it out. Is Tampa really a 3-0 team is the thing? But, that's kind of the thing sometimes in the NFL. You benefit from, an easier start to your schedule, which obviously Tampa had a tough matchup versus Detroit last week. But I think it's probably going to be a stingy game, not too special. But in the end, I do ultimately see here early part of the season. Next game we have the Green Bay Packers. They lost Jordan Love, but they still managed to get a win last week. They are taking on the Tennessee Titans, who, really, they were in that game for much of it, versus the Jets. They couldn't pull it out. So this was kind of a tough one to pick because obviously the Titans, they made a lot of additions this offseason. But the Packers, if they're able to do what they did last week, that's a way to beat a lot of teams. But, I do think the Titans are going to get the win here. I do think they pick up the win. I see, Tennessee. I think that offense is finally going to come together. Will Levis, it's been up and down. Feels like one of those weeks he could come out, have a solid game. Malik Willis, that is interesting. Could be a revenge game for him, but at the same time, Will Levis, he also has something to prove. I'm going to go ahead, get the win to Tennessee here. Next game we have here, the Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams. It hasn't been the most impressive 2 weeks for Caleb. Definitely there are things to improve upon. Heading into Indianapolis to take on an 0-2 Colts team that, when you really honestly look at it, could very well be 2-0. And I'm going to give the one to the Colts here. I think could definitely see it being close. But you got to think that the Colts, they're due for a win here. Anthony Richardson, obviously, it's got to come together. Give me the Colts here. Battle of 2-0 teams. This was a tough one to pick. The LA Chargers with Jim Harbaugh going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, two teams I don't think a lot of people had high expectations for in the AFC, but are two teams that so far 2-0, it's going to be a stingy game. It is. And ultimately, I'm gonna have to pick the Steelers here. I am. As I say, another tough one. Chargers could win it. I think you do have to give the quarterback nod to the Chargers here. But with it being at home, with it being, once again, Pittsburgh's home opener, still got some home openers here in week 3. I am going to have to go ahead, give it to the Steelers. I do think there is energy, there's excitement about, obviously the defense. So I'm going to go ahead. I mean, Chargers, they are due for a loss at some point. I think it comes here. Heading into the 4 o'clock games. Dolphins, and obviously Tua, he says he wants to play again. Is it safe for him to? That's for us to talk about, but it looks like it's going to be Skylar Thompson at this point, starting. Going into Seattle. Seahawks, they've had a solid start to the season, starting 2-0, albeit an easy schedule, but it's still a 2-0 start. And I think Seattle's going to go to 3-0. I do. I see Seattle, picking up a win here. I don't think Miami having to make, basically the longest travel flight in the NFL with the quarterback situation. I know they have Waddle and Hill, but another thing too, just not their type of environment, I feel like. So give me Seattle here. Next game we have here in the 4 o'clock window, the Carolina Panthers. It's been a dreadful start to the season. They did bench Bryce Young. It is now Andy Dalton's team, at least for right now, going up against the Raiders, a Raiders team that got a really shocking win over the Ravens. And, when looking at it, I just, Andy Dalton, for right now, how better is he going to be than what Bryce Young was doing? I think you got to look at it and say, obviously, the last few years. And having to travel to Vegas, got to go with the Raiders here. Give me them. Still think the Panthers, they got a lot of stuff to figure out. I think it's bigger than just on the field also. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take the Raiders here. Next game we have here, 425. NFC West matchup against two teams that, really kind of, have had shaky weeks last week. Both the 49ers and Rams lost. The Rams are 0-2 in the Sean McVay era. So, yeah, that's obviously Paul Steve-O, Samuel, Christian. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give this one to the Rams. I feel like this is just the type of game, they, they've lost key pieces too. Christian McCaffrey is a big part of that offense, Same with Debo. You take both of them away now. Ricky Pearsall, I still think, is a couple weeks away from being able to return. I got to go with the Rams here. Got to give them the win. Next game we have here, battle of 2-1-1 teams. Cardinals at home for a second straight week, welcoming the Lions. And the Lions really let that game slip through their hands in versus Tampa. And to be completely honest, I do think the Lions, they should come out and take care of business in this one. The Cardinals got an impressive win versus the Rams. Obviously showing there is, something there. Marvin Harrison Jr. having his breakout game. But I got to give this one to the Lions. I think they're the better team. I think that's here. And you want to talk about two teams in really dire situations. The 0-2 Ravens. The Ravens haven't been 0-2 since, God, I can't even tell you how long it has been since they've been 0-2. And they could easily be 2-0. That's the reality of it. Versus the Cowboys team that obviously got shellacked last week by the Saints, wasn't even close. You would look at it and say you know, Dallas is set up to win, but we said that last week. And see, to get a win in a very tough AFC, I think that's what they're going to do. I think the Ravens are going to go into Dallas. They're going to beat the Cowboys. I don't think there's a good mojo in AT&T Stadium for Dallas right now, as shocking as that sounds, because they did not lose a game there in 2 years, and now they've lost their past two in really in blowout fashion. Could honestly see the same thing happening here. I think the Ravens get their first win of the season, and, Dallas, they dropped to 1-2. Both teams 1-2 after this game. All right, next game here. I've been waiting. Obviously, what a game versus the Eagles for the night football in 5 years. In the bins, that environment's going to be electric, I'm telling you right now. With that being said, it is the Chiefs. Listen, it's not going to be easy, and I'm going to talk about what Philadelphia does for this team. I really feel I can propel you to a whole new level. Momentum's absolutely on our side right now. The Chiefs are 2-0, but they won both those games, very, very much questionable, very much, or there were still things to work on. And now that Isaiah Pacheco's out, that's another big blow to them. I'm picking the Falcons. I'm picking us to win. I'm going to lock this in as the upset of the week. And I think this is going to be a damn good game, too. I could honestly, do I think it's going to be as crazy as the game was versus the Eagles? I mean, I don't think so. I don't know how much crazier it can get with that other than it is Patrick Mahomes. But I do think this is going to be a really good game. And, I'm going to say we come out on top. I'm feeling good about this game. I think this is the type of game the Chiefs will drop early in the season, non-conference opponent, on the road. The Chiefs are 2-0, but they got stuff to polish up on. This is the type of game that they lose. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to pick the Falcons. We do have 2 Monday night games this week, so we got a doubleheader. First game we got starting at 7:30 in Buffalo in Orchard Park. The 0-2 Jaguars at the 2-0 Bills. The Jaguars, starting 0-2. Obviously, for a team like them, it is very tough. But at the same time, it is also very, very much, it puts a lot of pressure on, that Jacksonville team. Buffalo, 2-0, after all the changes they've had this offseason. This is a game where you want to look at it and say Jacksonville's due for a win. But at the same time, going into Buffalo, it's a very tough environment. It's on Monday night. You got to go with the Bills here. And I'm going to lock this in as my lock of the week. I don't know if it's the smartest lock of the week I've ever made, but I'm going to say I just think if the Bills come out and take care of business, I don't see a way they'll lose this game. I don't. I think Jacksonville has some issues that they got to get sorted out. Obviously, these first 2 games, Jacksonville's another team. Could easily be 2-0 depending on how you look at it. They just are. And the tough reality, having to go into Buffalo, it's not favorable. So I'm going to have to go with the Bills in this game. Final game, 8:15. This is on ABC. The Commanders with Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels making his primetime debut in Cincinnati versus the Bengals. Joe Burrow back on Monday night. This is another game, where it feels like the Bengals, they're destined to get a win here. It feels like, kind of a similar script almost from last year, I want to say. I think they got their first one on Monday night last year. The Bengals typically, they do have 0-2 starts, and they can still get into the playoffs. I think, honestly, I do think they're going to win this game. Washington is still trying to gel together. It is their first primetime game. Jane Daniels' primetime debut. The jitters are definitely probably going to be there. So I'm going to go ahead, give this to the Bengals. Close game, but they ultimately come out on top. So with that being said, week 3, we're already a few weeks into the season. It's been a crazy first few weeks. I think it could be another crazy weekend. Y'all take it easy. I'll see you all in the next one.